Hi everyone, today I am joined with Jean, who has a pretty incredible story here on Casual Conversations. And so to introduce you a little bit, Jean has lost 160 pounds throughout her life and also has a lot more besides that. But I think to start things off, you want to tell people how we ended up meeting and even sitting next to each other?
Yeah. For the last 4 years, I have done the Tour de Cure here in Phoenix for diabetes. So this year, as I was traveling on my Terra Trike, a young man came up beside me and he said, "Why do you ride in this?" And so I briefly told him my story, and then he said, "Wait a minute, let me get my camera on. Can you repeat that?" And so we rode together probably the last 5 miles or so on the Tour de Cure, and we became quick friends. And then I invited him. He had a few days layover here, invited him to stay in our home, and he's been such a blessing to us these last few days.
And I know we're underselling a little bit. What are like the few of the adventures that we've gone on?
Well, besides Tour de Cure, I have a favorite route that I ride up in the north part of Phoenix, and it is on the Sonoran Desert Parkway. So we went up there a couple days ago and we did a 15-mile ride up there. We had a great time, beautiful weather, beautiful scenery. The desert is getting in bloom. So we had a great time up there. I think we had just one flat tire and it wasn't me. So I said, "How are you going to air that tire up, Eric? Where's your pump?"
And that is when Jean and I together learned how to use the CO2 tank, which neither of us had successfully used before. So we had a little elbow grease, and I think something you've been teaching me over these last couple of days is the beauty of Arizona and the desert here, which has been spectacular. I've pretty much been asking Jean every single type of cactus and what type it is.
True, and I came up with most of them except for one yesterday I didn't know the name of.
I know, it's been impressive. And speaking of yesterday, you want to talk about the hike a little bit?
Yes, I had seen on the internet this cave out in Gold Canyon, which is about an hour from here. That cave is called the Wave Cave because when you go up to it on the side of the Superstition Mountains, there's a great opening, but in that opening of the cave, there's a flat surface that juts out like a surfboard, and then another rock formation that looks exactly like a wave. So it is called the Wave Cave. So we decided we were going to go out and we were going to hike that mountain yesterday and go to the Wave Cave. So we got out in the desert, a beautiful day again, beautiful desert. People don't realize there are a lot of mountains in Arizona. Now, they're not like the Rockies, but they are mountains. So we started on the trail, and we got about a third of the way there, and all of a sudden, this 67-year-old woman was not having very strong footholds on the rocks. So Eric, being the gentleman he is, reached back, and he held my hand most of the way up and then about half of the way down. We had a great time. Dusty and dirty by the end of it, but we had a great time.
And I was so happy that you took me out, but you know, right now we're talking about cycling, about hiking, about all these things. Do you want to bring us back? I really, you know, as you and I sit next to each other, we've been learning more about each other for 4 or 5 days now, but do you want to bring us back to a point maybe before you're at this active, or talk about this other side of your life that I know is there?
3 years ago, I am 5 feet tall. I was still 5 feet then, but I was 325 pounds. I was lethargic. I was losing mobility. I was having many symptoms of a severe diabetic. I was 2 insulin dependent, Lantus and Humalog. I was taken daily. And we just couldn't get the diabetes real well controlled. So I was sitting in my lazy boy one day, and I was watching these gurus, these fitness gurus on television. Every time there was someone on, they would say, "Just get up and move, just move, just move." And I sat up in my chair and I turned to my sister and I said, "I'm going to start moving. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I didn't know what I was going to do. But I knew I had to start moving, that I did not want to die young, and I knew I was headed for that. So I got up, I started looking at different things, and I landed on a Terra Trike ad that had a gentleman standing next to it that looked pretty fit, and the caption said, "The biggest loser." He had lost an enormous amount of weight by riding a Terra Trike. So I started shopping for one. I bought my first Terra Trike that was 9-speed. The first day I got on it, I was so big I couldn't hardly put my feet on the pedals, and I rode around the block, and I was breathing so heavily I thought I was going to die and have a heart attack. I hired a coach. Fast forward a couple years, I said to her at the end of about a year and a half, I said, "I want to ride in the Tour de Cure 25 miles. I know she thought I was crazy, but that's what I wanted, a goal, and that was my goal. She rode with me the first year. There were 12 to 1,500 riders. I came in dead last.
Wow.
Everybody else was in 2 hours before I came in, but the ADA and the Tour de Cure is so supportive that when I came up over that little berm of a hill, there were, I know, had to be 100 volunteers. Who had waited for me and were cheering me in. And as I came over the finish line, Tony Williams, our chairman, our late chairman for the ADA, he announced my finish, and we got the picture of me and my coach riding behind me as we came over the finish line. I was so exhausted and tired, I really was not aware of my surroundings. But the next year in our leadership meeting, Tony said to me, "Jean, did you realize what happened when you came over that finish line?" And I said, "Well, I guess not," because I was so engrossed with myself and getting over the line that I wasn't aware of what was going on around me. He says, "Jean, there were people weeping because you stuck to it. Everybody was finished in 3 hours. I took 5. And he said, people were so moved by you finishing and being committed to that finishing. He said, it was just amazing. He said, I'm sorry you weren't aware of what was going on around you. Since that time, I have lost 160 pounds. I can finish the 25 miles within a time slot they allow. And I have been able to share my story, and it has been an inspiration to others. And I just hope that it has encouraged one person with diabetes to get up and move. I am no longer on any insulins. And 2 of my nurse friends said, Jean, do you realize how unique, how unheard of that you are on 2 insulins as a diabetic and get off of the insulins? I said, no, and I guess I'm glad nobody told me, or maybe I wouldn't have hit that goal. And so my doctors are thrilled. I had left side of my heart was enlarged. It is now normal size. My legs and feet were swollen. I was getting the red rashes on the front of my legs. I was having difficulty breathing, just all kinds of symptoms of diabetes. And now I take one medication, which is a thyroid medication, which I'm not going to ever get rid of. But I am on no other medications, no symptoms of diabetes, off the insulin. My doctors are thrilled that they now say that I am a healthy 67-year-old.
I think that was the fastest tears that have been brought to you're an inspiration, Jean. And
as you can see, it's still emotional for me to realize, I keep telling people, I'm just an ordinary woman who's walked an extraordinary path these last 3 years. I look in the mirror. When I got up to get ready for the ride the other day, I looked in the mirror. And I said, who is this woman? Sometimes I don't recognize myself.
Wow. So we have the cycling, but I kind of want to talk about your cooking and that other aspect of health. And so
yes,
almost every morning that I have been here, Jean has made an incredible breakfast, incredible lunch, and as we finished up dinner here, you said no one goes home hungry. Have you always been a cook? Is this something you learned recently?
I have always been a cook, but I'm from the Midwest, so it's been potatoes, meat, and bread, and lots of starches and gravies, and that's how I grew up. It tastes wonderful, but it doesn't do anything for the body that you need it to do. And so when I started this journey, I also recognized that I would have to change how I ate, how I prepared food, and so I started cooking fresh. You find very few things in my house, or you probably haven't seen anything that I poured out of a can.
No.
I keep my crisper trays full of fresh vegetables. You can attest to that. And at any moment, I can throw together a meal with vegetables and then whatever meat we're eating. And so I started cooking differently about 3 years ago also. And I had to have my left knee replaced. Well, because I was so overweight, my doctor would not consider it at my weight. So they said, you're going to have to lose more weight before we can do the surgery for your knee. Well, I'd already lost some weight. But he said, if you want to accelerate it, you might want to consider bariatric surgery. So I had the bariatric sleeve, and that helped me then to start losing more quickly. I got to a weight last October. I had a full knee replacement on my left knee. I also, on my 66th birthday, about a year and a half ago, I had the goal of riding the old Route 66 that crosses across northern Arizona. I wanted on my 66th birthday to ride 66 miles on Route 66 across northern Arizona. So Carolyn was real supportive. She had these magnetic signs made up for the car to let people know it was my 66th birthday and what I was doing. I was a little bit like a celebrity on Route 66 that weekend. And people were asking me, what are you doing on this bicycle? What is your jersey about? What are these signs say that you're, So I was able to tell my story at that time. And so I did finish the 66 miles on Route 66 on my 66th birthday.
And probably had a good time throughout it.
Yes, and Carolyn was the SAG driver. That stands for support and gear. So she drove my car to make sure there are parts of Route 66 that are not drivable, that they're just in such poor condition. So sometimes we had to get out on Route 40. She would take the car out, protect me from cars that would come in on the on-ramp or come in exiting on the exit ramps. And so she was there, and that was a big job for her to make sure I was protected out there all the time while I was riding.
Yeah. So I know I look forward to following your journey. I know you'll be an angel on my shoulders.
You bet. It's been such a pleasure to have you here because I know with type 2 diabetes it can get really bad.
Yeah.
It can if you let it, and I was on that route. But a type 1 diabetic, I think you guys have a lot more challenges. I admire you for being the badass Erik and getting out there and doing things and showing people that it doesn't have to be a debilitating disease. There are a lot of things you can do. Don't focus on the can't. A lot of what you can do.
It's about finding the silver lining, proving that we can go anywhere, do anything.
Yes.
And share some laughs along the way.
Yes.
I'll give you a hug to end this thing.
Oh,
I'm going to miss you, Gene.
Oh, well, we'll stay in touch.
You know.
And I want to write your mother, too. I'm going to talk to your mama.
That'll be a wrap for the interview.
Okay.
I could talk to you for hours.
All right. We'll have time tomorrow.